Good morning and welcome to the Law and Justice Committee for January 13th, 2026. Today is our first day of session and I would like to introduce myself. My name is Manka Dhingra, State Senator from the 45th District, and very proud to chair this fine committee. Thank you. And with that, we're going to go to our last bill on the calendar, Senate Bill 5855. We do have 22 people signed in to testify, and in order to make sure we can get to everyone, we will be putting a 2-minute timer on that bill. Maya, go ahead.
Good morning. For the record, Maya Ita, Staff Counsel to this committee. Before you is Senate Bill 5855 concerning face coverings by law enforcement officers. To give some background, right now there is no law preventing law enforcement officers from wearing face coverings while carrying out their duties. But there are laws around officer identification. Under federal law, any member of law enforcement responding to a civil disturbance has to visibly display their name or another identifier and the name of their employer. Under Washington law, local and state law enforcement agencies have to adopt policies and procedures to make sure on-duty, uniformed state and local officers are reasonably identifiable, meaning the uniforms clearly show their names or other information people can use to identify them. This bill prohibits local, state, and federal law enforcement officers from wearing facial coverings while interacting with the public. This bill defines a law enforcement officer as any peace officer, which is a local or state officer, or any employee or agent of the United States government with the authority to carry firearms and to make warrantless arrests, and whose duties involve the enforcement of criminal, customs, or immigration laws of the United States. The bill defines a facial covering as any opaque mask, garment, or other item that conceals or obscures a person's facial identity, and it excludes the following from the definition: clear masks, N95 masks, and surgical masks that protect against disease transmission, masks or other devices that are necessary to protect against exposure to hazardous environmental conditions, and helmets used to protect the wearer's heads during transportation on a bicycle or motorized vehicle. The prohibition on facial coverings doesn't apply to officers performing their duties during an active undercover operation or to officers using protective gear on a SWAT team. The bill allows a person detained by an unlawfully masked local or state officer to sue that officer in their official capacity, so officers do have qualified immunity. A fiscal note has been requested and not yet received, and that concludes my remarks.
Thank you so much, Maya. Do any of the committee members have any questions for staff? Senator Fortunato.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if this specifically doesn't mention riot gear, in other words, if you're on a SWAT team and you have a protective helmet with a face shield, that's covered. But if you're in a riot situation and wearing riot gear, that is not?
One moment, I'm actually going to reference the bill really quickly. So I'm looking at Section 4, subsection B, and it mentions protective gear used by special weapons and tactics teams, special weapons and tactics team officers that are necessary to protect their faces from harm while performing their special weapons and tactics team responsibilities. I'd have to do a little bit of research to determine whether that does include riot gear, and I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Senator Torres.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for you. I'm trying to distinguish between if they're a federal employee, can the state sue? Because you mentioned about suing in there.
The bill...
There's a law's conflict there.
Apologies. The bill does provide for a private cause of action, so it wouldn't be the state suing. It would be an individual who's been detained by a local or state officer.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Maya. Oh, Senator Fortunato.
Thank you. Slight follow-up. Isn't that the case now? In other words, if you are harmed, if a police officer arrests me and uses excessive force, don't I have the private right of action now?
What the bill addresses is not excessive use of force. It addresses the fact of masking. So if somebody is detained by an officer who is unlawfully masked, then there's a private cause of action.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Valdez, would you please like to tell us about your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. And thank you, Maya, for that very thorough briefing. For the record, Javier Valdez from the 46th Legislative District.
Thank you so much. We're next going to go to Cassie Clayton.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, good morning. For the record, Cassie Clayton for the Northwest Progressive Institute, here in support of Senate Bill 5855, a focused and reasonable bill that strengthens transparency, accountability in law enforcement. Law enforcement officers wear opaque mask coverings when law enforcement officers wear opaque face coverings during these routine public interactions. It can undermine trust and make accountability more difficult. This bill sets a clear expectation that officers should be identifiable when interacting with the public, especially when it is safe and practical to do so. Importantly, SB 5855 is carefully balanced. It does not prohibit face coverings for legitimate safety, health, or operational reasons. Officers may continue to use protective equipment, serve in undercover roles, or wear tactical gear when necessary. These clear expectations ensure the bill protects both the public trust and officer safety. Transparency is a cornerstone for effective policing. When people can identify the officers they interact with, it promotes professionalism, reduces misunderstandings, and it strengthens confidence in law enforcement institutions. SB 5855 affirms that accountability and safety are not in conflict. These are complementary. NPI asks that you give this a due pass recommendation. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. We were not able to get to everyone online. We have a few people who did not have the opportunity to testify, so please go ahead and send those written testimonies in. And with that, we're going to close public hearing on Senate Bill 5855. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For those signed in not wanting to testify, there were 14,705 pro, 2,160 con.
Thank you so much. And with that, we conclude the Law and Justice Committee hearing for January 13th, and we are adjourned.